Hi there, Titans! My name is Paige, and today we are going to be doing another Titan Web Best Practices video. We will be discussing pages with Paige, and here are the questions that I will be addressing today. Number 1, how do pages in Titan Web differ from the pages that we knew in Titan Forms? 2, what does it mean to open a page in self, parent, modal, blank, or top? What is a standard modal versus a page modal, and when should I use either of those? What is the difference between set parent parameters and set parameters? What is the difference between a private page and a public page? What is RTL versus LTR? When should we be using a page load action and page unload action? And when should I be putting a condition on the page level versus on the element level? I'm really excited to discuss all of these things together with you today. I learned a lot in the making of this video, and I really think it's going to maximize our projects together. So let's get started. So how do pages in Titan Web differ from the pages that we knew in Titan Forms? In Titan Forms, to add a page, we would use a page break, and it was really a virtual page. The end user saw different pages throughout the form, but in reality, all of the pages were the same, and for that reason, we could use the hidden fields on any page throughout the entire project. However, we were not able to include things like steppers and tabs or containers on a page because really the page experience itself was similar to like a stepper or a tab in a way. And now in Titan Web, there are different interactive pages that we are designing, and our end users are flowing through different pages. And for that reason, parameters on the page can only really be live on that page. We can, of course, create global parameters that are live throughout the entire project, but each page is more of a standalone experience, and therefore we can add things like steppers, tabs, forms, and other containers and elements that are more advanced that Forms could not handle. So let me show you that in Titan Forms and Titan Web. So here is our Titan form, and if I wanted to add a page, I can type in page break over here, drop it in, and now we have another page where I can add a page. Here's page 2, and I can go back to page 1. I can make this button go to go next, and whenever the end user clicks there, then it goes to the next page. And also, if I were to have a hidden field here, I can access the value in that hidden field at any point in my form. So I never had to pass the value from this hidden field anywhere else unless it was going to an external site. Whereas if I were to go into Titan Web, which this best practice video is about, to add a new page, what we do is come up here to Pages, then we can click Add a New Page, and we can choose to add in any page from a different project in our account. So I could choose like my home page from here, or a page from over here. I can add it in, or I can just do a new blank page and add it to my project. And now I have two different pages, a home page and then page 2. And on this page 2, I can add in like a stepper or another container, an accordion, all of these things that kind of give the user a more robust experience. So here's a stepper that lives on one page, but will allow the end user to go through a series of steps within the page itself. And further, if we wanted to have a hidden value, we no longer have hidden fields, but instead we have parameters. And so you can have a global parameter that is stored over here under Tools, Custom Variables, and these are live throughout the whole project. But we also have page parameters. So on page 2, I can go to my 3 dots, go to Configure Action, and here are my variables. And I did do an entire other best practices video about variables, so I would really highly encourage you to watch that video as well. But I wanted to, for the sake of this video, show you where our hidden fields that are now called variables live on the page. So I can add in a variable here. We'll call it like contact ID. And we can add another one, account ID, like so. And now these are live on the page. So whenever I preview, let me go ahead and add in my debug mode so that we're able to see the values here. Save, preview. We're not able to see the hidden field here, but when I go into debug mode, I have these two page variables right here that I created and are live on this page, but not on page 1. So I'll show you page 1 too. If I were to be on page 1 and preview this, we do not have those variables because they are only live on the page that they were assigned to, unless I pass it to the next page or install that value as a global variable. Again, I highly encourage you to watch the variable video. It is very good and helpful, I believe. All right, let's continue forward. So what does it mean to open a page in self, parent, modal, blank, or top? And this question stems from whenever you are redirecting to a page. Let's say we're going to open a page here. I love the action flows. So I'm going to go to redirect, go to page. And then here with an internal, we can open up a page. So let's say page 2. We can open it up in self, parent, blank, modal, or top. And so let's discuss what each of these mean. So self will open the selected page to replace the current page. It really just opens it up in itself. It's just like going from one page to the next, normal occurrence. Blank would be opening that page in a brand new browser tab. Modal is when they open up a page, but in a smaller pop-up type of experience. So it's going to live or be seen on top of the first page, and then it can be closed and you can go back to the parent page. So that brings us to parent. So parent would mean that it's redirecting the page that's existing before it. So if you're in a modal and you click a button that redirects the parent, then it will redirect the parent, the next level of that page that's open. And then top would be, say we had 3 modals open within each other. The top would redirect the very highest level of parent pages. So it would be the very, very top first page that was opened. And I'm going to show you all of these things. And iframe is not one of these options when you're redirecting to a page, but you can open a page in an iframe, such as within a power table. And I'm going to show you that too right now. So let's redirect to page 2 in self. And I'm not going to bother with setting parameters right now. We'll deal with that later on in the video. All right, so I'm going to click save, and then when we preview, this is what it means to redirect in self. So there we go. Now let's change it to be redirect in parent or in blank. So let's redirect. So now we have opened up a new tab and we have this page. And let's now change it to modal. And you can see we have more options when we open up within a modal. We need to define what the width and height of this pop-up modal experience will be. A safe number is always 1,000. Doesn't mean it's always going to fit, but in my experience, 1,000 is a good place to start if you do not measure your experience, your page beforehand. And then you can also say do not redirect inside modal, so that prevents the modal from being able to redirect within itself. You can also hide the header if you'd like. And then you can choose the position, top, center, or bottom. Center is always a good choice. So let's practice with this one. So I'm opening it up within the modal. There it is. And so if I hid the header, then you wouldn't see this, and then you'd have to give yourself a way to close the modal, whether it's through a button or make your own X or some other on-click action that will close the modal. Okay, so now that we have that, we need to show you how we will open something in parent and also in top. So I'm going to change this one so we're not confused. We'll have this one open page. And we can do this, let's say we'll make a page 3. We'll just make this one say page 3. And then let's go to page 2, and we are going to open this page or redirect the parent from this. Redirect, go to page, and for this one we are going to choose page 3, but we're going to redirect it within the parent. So let's go to home and preview. So this first one is opening the modal, and then we're going to open the page, and you can see that we have redirected to page 3 in the parent. So that is really cool, and it also closed the modal in the process. So really cool experience there for your users. And now let's do a redirect parent. So to do that, or redirect top, so to do that, I'm actually going to go to page 2 and then make this one, instead of redirect, go to page within parent. I'm going to also make it do a modal. Apply. And then on page 3, let's put a button here that will redirect the top. So we'll redirect to page 2, but we're going to open it at the top. Next. Save, and then let's return back to page 1 for this super unique experience of opening up a lot of pages in one project. And we're on the home page. We're going to open up to page 2, and then we're going to open up the second modal. This will be page 3. See page 3, and then this button's going to redirect the parent, which is, the top. So it's not the parent, it's the top one, this one over here, and it's going to redirect it to page 2. So let's watch that happen. And there we go. So those are those 5 ways to open up a page on the redirect page actions. Now let me show you what it looks like if we were to do this with a power table. So I'm going to make this stepper a little bit bigger so that we can place a power table in it. Nice. Let's go to table, power table, and I'm just going to bring back some accounts. Awesome. And then I'm going to map it. Let's just do account name. But I'm going to configure a component. And now I can select the component type, and it can be a table, which would just be an expansion and another table. We can also do a chart, or we can do an iframe, where we will, again, we have the option to include an external site, an internal page, and that's what I'm going to do, or a chatbot. And then I can also set the parameters if I'd like. So let's check this out. Make this nice and large for us. And there you go. You can see our iframe right there. Save and preview. So if I go to step 2, I can click on an account and then see page 3 open up within it. So that gives you a lot of options for ways to open up pages within modals, within a new tab, within an iframe. Really anything that you can think of is now possible with pages in Titan Web. All right, let's move on to our next question. So now that we are very familiar with the page modals and page modals within page modals, let's discuss what the difference is between that page modal that we just saw and the standard modal that is also an option in Titan Web. So the page modal, it is a page, just like we saw. We created a page and then we triggered it to display itself as a pop-up. And because it is its own instance and its own page, we do have to transfer data through parameters when we open and close that modal. And because it's its own page, if you were to redirect the page that's on top of, you would have to use parent, like we just saw. We redirect using parent, and it just creates a very robust and flexible experience for the users. You saw that we were able to open different steppers and have different things going on. You could create your own sizes for this modal, and for that reason, it does take a little bit longer to load and unload, because a lot of the time we're using different actions, we're pulling information, we're getting information, we're pushing information to Salesforce, and for that reason as well, we cannot display this as a hover modal. So if you do not need as much of a robust experience for your modal, then maybe you could use a standard modal instead. So standard modals, and I'm going to show you them in just a second, but they trigger display elements in a pop-up format just like the page modal, except that they are not a page in and of itself. They belong to the whole project, and they're just a small little pop-up. It does not need to pass page parameters or parent parameters to transfer data in and out of the modal because it's not a page. If you're going to redirect the parent, you're not going to use parent. Instead, you'll just use self because it lives on the page that it is. And for that reason, its structure is a little bit more limited. It can't support advanced functionality. So you measure out what your need is for the modal and decide if you need a standard modal or a page modal. Because it's not as robust, it loads very fast, unloads and loads very quickly, and it can be displayed as a hover modal for that reason. Because it's so fast, you can have it hover over elements or different buttons and things, and that would be really cool. So let me show you that standard modal. So to create a standard modal, you can go over to the settings wheel and then go to site elements, and then here you see drawers and modals. We can add a new modal, and then we can go and edit it. So here is our modal. I can make it bigger if I'd like. Change the size. Top right, top left, center, bottom left. So you can choose where you would like it to be in your page. And then we can add in elements to this modal. So here we are adding our elements, and you can see that it kind of has an auto fit container of sorts in it. And then we can have a button on it as well. So let's add our button. So if we're going to close this modal, if it were a page modal, you would go to page actions, and then you can close the modal. That's what you'd do if it was a page. But if it's a standard modal, then you close the modal by going to layout actions, drawer/modal, and then you can go to modal, enable it, find your modal, and then you can choose to hide. Show would be to show the modal, hide is to hide the modal, and then toggle is to do whatever it's currently not doing. So if you had a button that would be showing and hiding the modal itself, then you can put it on toggle and it will do that for you. Okay, so now I have this modal created, and I'm going to trigger it from my home page. So instead of redirect go to page, I can delete this. I'm going to add a new action. It's going to be a layout action. And then I'm going to choose the modal that I have, and I can show it. Lovely. So let's preview this. And watch how quickly this opens up. So quick. There was no loading involved because it already exists in the project, and it was able to load very quickly. Same with unloading. Bam. Very, very quick. Now let me show you the hover modal. Certain elements are allowed to have hover modals, so let's show you what it would look like here. So instead of this, I can delete this, apply, and on the settings, I can activate my hover modal. I can choose which modal it is. I've already created it. And then I can even have actions that happen on show and on hide. Now let's check it. So there is my modal. And you can see as I hover over it, I can see the information. So this would be really important to have, like maybe you have like a really cool chart, and if they hover over something, then they can see like the chart and the information that has to do with like that account or whatever you'd like. But it's just a cool way to show a modal without clicking on it, being very like interactive and fun. And this is something that a page modal would not be able to do. So the next question is, what is the difference between set parameters and set parent parameters? And based on our discussion thus far, many of you may have a good educated guess about this. Setting parameters is how we will move page parameters or pass page parameters from one page to the next. It will happen as you open a page modal, but also as you just redirect to a new page or open a new page. Anytime you're moving to a new page, it's going to ask you if you want to move parameters with you from one page parameter to the next. And then set parent parameters is really only whenever you are closing a modal, because the modal is closing, the modal has a parent, and it's asking you if you want to set parameters from or on the parent page that it is going to. So both pages are already open, and that's why it doesn't just ask you to set parameters. It wants to know if you want to send parameters back to the parent that is also still open at the time. So let's explore this a little more in Titan Web. Here's our home page, and I'm going to go ahead and add a parameter here. You can go to static variables, and I'm going to call this one contact ID. And to make sure that we stay very clear on this, I'm going to call it home page contact ID. And then I'm going to set one on page 2. And I'm going to call it, let's just remove these two. We no longer need it. Page 2 contact ID. Apply. For the sake of this video, I'm going to make this here, create a contact. It's going to pass it to the home page parameter, the home page contact ID, and then I'm going to have it move when we go to the next page to move over to the page 2 contact ID. So for this example, let me go ahead and just map my fields. This will be last name. I don't need this. I'll just do last name and email field, and then I'll have a special button. One button is going to create the contact, and then one button will go to the next page. I'm only doing this so that you can see that the contact ID goes to one page, and then I'm going to pass it to the other. So this button here is going to create the contact. And then my mapping will be last name to last name, and then email to email. Last name is the only required field for my contacts, but we'll have email in there as well, just for fun. Okay, and then this is where I'm going to, it's asking me where do I want to return the ID to. Whenever you're creating a new record, it gives you the option to pull back the record ID. Sometimes that's really important, like if you're creating an account and then lots of contacts underneath, you're going to need that account ID so that you can pair the contacts with that account. So I'm returning the record ID to my home page. Next, apply, save, and then I'm going to make sure that this here goes to page 2. So let's redirect, go to page 2. We'll open it in Self, and here it asks us to set parameters. So I'm going to click on Set Parameters, and on this aisle here, there's only one, but all on this side of the pop-up, it's going to show you all the parameters that the page that you're redirecting to has, all the parameters. So for mine, it only says page 2 contact ID. And now I get to say, where do I want to fill or pass any value to this parameter as I change the page. So you could have a static variable, value, if you wanted it to be like page or something, you can, sure, whatever. Or you can have it map something that really is going to help you, such as that home page contact ID. So I'm moving that contact ID that is being created. I'm going to move it to page 2 with me, and I'm going to show you how we can watch that happen. Save, and I'm going to make sure that our debug mode is on so we can see this. There we go. Now let's preview this together. There we go. So I'm creating the contact. There it is. And now let's check our debug mode. And you can see that the home page contact ID is filled with this new contact that I just created. Here, I'll go ahead and show you the contact too. So what do we name him? Smithson? Let's look for him. There he is, Smithson, and his email should be j@hl.com. Cool. And now you can see that I don't even see page 2 contact ID. It's because that variable is not live in this page. It's only live on page 2. So let's go to page 2. I forgot about the hover modal. Now we're on page 2. We don't see anything because I didn't map anything to go there. But you can see that page 2 contact ID has the variable that I passed. So that's what set parameters means. Now let's discuss set parent parameters. We're going to go back over here, and let's say page 2 will be opened up as a modal. So we actually need to go back over here, go here, and then when we redirect, go to page 2. Then we are going to open it and a modal. Again, we can choose to set parameters like so. Apply. I'm actually not going to do this. I'm going to unmap it. What we're going to do is we're going to create the contact in this page modal and then pass it back. So let's enter our width and height. 1000's always a safe number in most cases. Save, and then on page 2, let's see what fields we have here. This looks perfect. So we're now going to create that contact here. Last name. I'll just go ahead and get rid of that. And again, I'm going to make a button to let us create the contact. Actually, let's do it together at one time so that we'll see it all happen together. We're going to create the contact, Salesforce action, create the contact, and then we're going to return the record ID to page 2 contact ID because we're on page 2. And then after it's finished, we're going to redirect. Actually, that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to close my modal. So layout actions, page actions, next. Close modal, enable, and then I can enable to set my parent parameters. And this is what I'm talking about. So whenever you're closing a modal, you have the option to set the parameters for the page that you're returning to. And the reason why we need to do it and why it's called set parent parameters instead of just set parameters is because both of those pages are already open. We're not opening up a new page, we're just simply closing the modal. And in that instance, we're giving the option to also pass the parameters back to the parent that we came from. So now I can map this parameter that I'm going to pass. This is the one that I'm going to be filling, the home contact ID, and I'm going to fill it using the page 2 contact ID. So it kind of runs backwards here. You always are going to choose the one that's being filled, and then you're saying how it's being filled. Okay, so apply, next, apply, save. Okay, so let's go home. I just want to make sure that we're not going to create the contact. We're simply just going to open this page. I want to make sure that we are opening it in a modal. Yep, okay, cool. I already did that. So we're going to open up the modal. Emerson is good. Creating the contact, closing the modal, and then we have passed the parameter to the parent. Homepage contact ID is filled, and it came from page 2 contact ID. So that is how it's done, and let's move forward to our next question. So what is the difference between a private and a public page? Did you even know that we had both options for private or public pages and that they can be within the same project? Public pages are what we have been working on this whole time in this project together. It's a little funky of a project, but they're public, and anybody with a link to my project would be able to get in and see all my crazy fields and hover modals. But we could also make it a private page by including a smart V or a single sign-on, and that would provide some type of protection because the end user would have to sign in and verify their identity before they would be able to get to a private page. You're able to use private pages for portals, for forms with personal information, forums that are existing contacts in Salesforce that they could identify themselves and then see their information, whereas a public page should be used for like public forms or maybe the portal home pages or a registration page. Sometimes you might combine both private pages and public pages in a project where half of it, is displayed for the public. Maybe they're able to make an account and then sign on to a portal. And then the other part is for users who already exist and have a sign-on option inside this portal and can see the more protected data or experiences that you want for your end users. So let me show you how we do Smart V and show you around the private and the public pages. All right, so to see if your pages are private or public, you would go to the 3 dots, and then you could see inherit from project or public. And you may be thinking, Paige, you just told me that all of our pages are public. They're public, and they are. The only reason that we have inherit from project here is in case someone were to enable Smart V, then they wouldn't have to come in here and select all of the pages. The pages are always public until you enable Smart V, and then they become inherit from project, meaning private, and then they will not be able to see any of our pages until they sign in, unless we were to make them public. So let me just explain that a little bit better to you. So let's enable our Smart V. There's lots of different ways that you can restrict access to your project, so that's all done and user access. We have Smart V, access control, SSO. Access control is actually a part of SmartV, basically just saying that, you know, different people in Salesforce could have different amounts of visibility in your project. Then they also have SmartV Canvas and SmartV Lightning Web Component. For now, I'm just going to show you SmartV, and you can watch other videos on how to do all these other user access capabilities on your own time if you'd like. So let's just say that they can log in if they are a contact. The value, always choose contact ID, and then you can do email. You can add other fields if you'd like. Phone number if you want. You don't have to. You can, you know, do whatever you want. Delete. Let's just do email to email, and I'll delete this one too. Okay. Then we can say the condition. This is basically which contacts can log in. So if you only want certain kinds of contacts being able to log into your portal, this is where you can restrict that. Two-factor authentication would send them an email to verify their identity before they can properly sign on. For the sake of this video, I'm just going to turn that off, but I would recommend that. And then you can also do profile registration or parameters if you'd like. Parameters are specifically for the access control. Okay, so now SmartV is logged in, and that means that no one will be able to see any of these pages until they get past the SmartV login. Let me show you that. So this is what it looks like. It's asking for an email. Let's go find our jhl.com. Because he is a contact, he will be able to log in with this email. There we go. And now we are in our private pages here. Let's instead make one of these pages public. So I'm going to change this to a public page. Save. Preview this. So when I go to open page, it wants me to log in now because the next page is still private, but the first page was public. So that is how you can create both private and public pages within one project. Let's move on to our next question. So what is RTL versus LTR? We're talking about the page orientation of your projects and pages in Titan Web. Let me show you where you configure this. If you go to the settings wheel over here, on the overview, the very first tab that's open, you can see the site orientation. It's standardly just left to right, but you also have right to left as an option. And this is very important for various cultures that you may be serving in your organization. You can also choose to have the orientation be set based off of each page. So on each page 3 dots, you have the page orientation, and here it means that it's going to match whatever your project style is. But you can also have it be unique in that it could go the opposite way than the rest of the pages on your project. There are 2 reasons why this is very important for companies. One, it's because we have people all over the globe who do not use left to right orientations and who prefer to read right to left. So this gives you an option to serve your customers across the globe by giving them the experience that they are used to. And Titan is the only system that supports both left to right and right to left orientations in document generation, forms, survey tools, and e-signatures. So for the ability to be able to switch between the both of them is very, very key for a lot of different cultures across the world. So I would encourage you to think about, what ways you can use Titan Web to meet the demands of people and customers, clients across your market. All right, so let's move on to the next question. So when should we be using page load actions and page unload actions? Page load actions are actions that will trigger on the first time or every time that page loads. And so they will support the structure, the loading, the experience of your page, and you need to make sure that whatever is triggering this page load or whatever you put on page load actions, that they are values that already exist. I've had problems before where you run a get, but you also want something to load based off that get. And so the page is loaded before the get is completed. And so you just have to be careful with what you place on the page load actions. But it's very, very useful in a lot of cases because it can determine the experience and what is shown on the page before the user even notices that there's any configuration or conditions that are in place. Versus page unload actions are to meet a specific use case where perhaps your user is trying to close out of the experience, the page, and you want to be able to like save the input that they have given you, or maybe just give them like a question, be like, are you sure you want to leave? And things can happen. So you can have actions that happen after, like as soon as they click the X to leave. You can have actions that happen when they say, yes, I want to leave, or no, I don't want to leave. So there's a lot of options with that. Let me show you what I mean by this. So on the page, you can go to the 3 dots and go to configure actions. And here's what I meant by first time and every time page load action. So let's go ahead and do a first time. And I'm just going to do I want to do a toast. Where do I find toast? There it goes. I like the toast messages. I'm just going to have one that says welcome. And I'm going to set the auto dismiss for 10 seconds. Nice. So that's the first time that it loads. And then every time it loads, I'm going to do something other than a toast because I want it to, let's actually do like a Salesforce action. And we'll run a get. Don't want a power table. Let's do a new. We'll do a contact. We're going to get some contact values. And we're going to do user action because we're going to install it on load. And then the conditions will be where last name, contact ID equals, and I'm going to go ahead and just paste our Smithson contact right here, since we've already been working with him and are so familiar. Okay, and then the mapping. So let's map our fields. We have the last name and the email. Okay, so I am putting this get on the every time page load. So every time this page loads, I'm going to run this get. That's a very common use case for page load actions, is to run the get when the page loads. And then I have the first time, and then let's do an page unload action. So you can see it is in the form of a confirmation message, but you can configure something to happen when the message shows. So let me say that we will update our contact. Or let's just do create contact. We'll just create it whenever that is done. We'll just save time and not configure another Salesforce action. So, yes. You can also have actions happen when they say yes or when they say no. And you can change these buttons too. So if you wanted to say save contact, sure, we can do that. And leave. So you can do those things too. Apply and save. And let's watch this in action. So we're going to click preview, and we're going to see the first time and the every time action happen at the same time. Let me make sure that our, yeah, we're fine. Okay. So welcome, we see that happened, and we can see that our get ran. And now let's create something so that we can see the contact being created as we close out of this. So I'm not saving the contact. All I'm doing is just closing out. And this is my Google pop-up. Let's just ignore this. but you can see the save, and then you can see the confirmation "Are you sure?" message. And I didn't have anything mapped here. Nothing's happening when I click anything here. But you can see that I now, let's go ahead and search for Piri, our contact, and you can see his email. So that was saved as the on page unload action. So that is what we mean by page load actions and page unload actions. So when should we be putting a condition on a page versus on an element? This is a very good question, and I'm going to explain this and then show it to you so you can fully grasp this concept. Conditions on the page should really be reserved for the page parameters that are on that page, or something that would happen with a global parameter on that page as well. So a typical use case, maybe if the page variable account ID is not empty, then let's get all of the contacts from Salesforce with that same account ID and display it within a power table. So we could get the account ID from somewhere else, and once it's retrieved, then load all of the contacts from that account. Versus on an element, that should be reserved for things that that particular element will be affecting and triggering. So if you have a form, and if the country equals USA, if the user types in USA for country, then you can show the social security number field, because then, maybe that means that they would have a social security number, but a different country would not have that field. And then you can also have conditions on the page load or on click actions. So whenever the page loads, if the record type ID is such and such, then I want to show this certain strip. Or when they click a button, if the field is not empty, so if they have, information typed into the first and last name field, then we can create a contact in Salesforce. So let me show you these 3 types of conditions that you can put on the page element or a page load or on click actions. So let's start with the page load. Let me just see what is here. So first time we're getting the toast, and then every time we are currently running this Salesforce action. So instead of doing the Salesforce action, I can even do a if condition. So if my home page contact ID is not empty, next, then I will trigger the Salesforce action. And then if it's not, or if it is empty, then I'm going to show a message that says no contact found. All right, so let's do this. And because I don't have a contact ID already in this, we're going to get that message that says that it is not found. So it's loading, it's thinking, it says no contact is found. There you go. So that is how I put something on the page load. Let me get rid of these. Leave. Yes, okay. Let's get rid of the page unload action because it's kind of annoying me. Now let's show you what happens if we were to put this on the condition of the page. So you can see the configure action, and then we could have a condition. So let's say if and like I said before, this is what we should reserve for the page parameters. So, and for the page parameter and something that would happen later on, not on load. So we want it to happen later on. So once this home page contact ID is not empty, so something is in it, then I'm going to go to the next page. It will redirect to page 2. We can open it in Self, that's fine. redirect, go to page 2, apply, save. So whenever we create this contact, we are having the Salesforce action. It is creating the contact, and then it is filling the home page contact ID. So theoretically, when I fill this contact ID with a Salesforce action, then it's going to trigger that condition on the page because the page parameter is filled. Now we're going to go to the next page. So let's test this together. No contact is found. That was from that first on-page load condition. Okay, so I'm going to create the contact, and then it's going to go to the next page. And I forgot about the public page thing. Let's just go ahead and make this public so that that doesn't happen. We've been doing a lot of different things with pages in this project together. Okay. No contact is found. Let's do cool, create contact. It creates it, and because it's filled, now it goes to the next page. So that is how you will use the page conditions with your page parameters. And now I want to show you what happens when what you should do for an element. So let's say, let's do a drop-down value. I feel like that's a pretty common use of like element conditions. So we'll do a drop-down. Like this. It'll be, do you want a free t-shirt? And if they say yes, so this one will say yes, this one will say no. We'll get rid of this one. Apply, save, and then if they say yes, then we will have a, let's just do a text field where this one will be shirt size, and I'll just type it in. Doesn't really make sense data-wise, but it works for this. And then basically what we need to do, because this is the field that will be affecting other things, we will put the condition on this field. So we can go to conditions, go to configure conditions, and then we already have this if condition here. Let's edit it. If, do you want a free t-shirt value? And you can choose both label or value. Mine's going to be label because that's the only thing that I mapped. So if the label equals yes, then I'm going to show, we'll go to element, affected elements. Let's find that size field, shirt size, and we're going to show it. So I'll click apply. Next. So if it equals yes, affect elements, and I'm going to make this be hide on load. So it's going to be hidden, and then if they say yes, then the shirt size will be revealed. So let's see it together. Sears. And you can see that it is hidden. We only see, do you want a free t-shirt? If I say no, nothing happens. And if I say yes, now we have shirt size. There we go. So those are the 3 different places that you could put a condition. It's good whenever you are talking about an element that is, I guess, like in charge, or the one that will be affecting things, then you should place it on the element itself. And if you're talking about something to do with a page parameter or a global parameter, then you should configure that, or a global parameter, you can put it on the global parameter site or area. So custom variables, we have conditions here. So if we're talking about global variables, then you should put them here. And if you're talking about page variables, then you can put it on the page itself. So this is reserved for page variables. But if it's something to do with the page being loaded and something that should happen when the page is loaded or unloaded, then put the conditions here. And so you would do the action flow, and then you would paste the condition right here and configure it like that. All right, so that was actually our last question. If there are any more, I would be happy to address anything that I missed. Leave a comment or email me. I really enjoyed having this conversation. I really enjoyed this series and the things that I learned in the process of creating these videos. So thank you guys so much for watching all of them. It really means a lot to us, and I'm hopeful that it is improving all of your projects here at Titan. Thanks. Bye.